Stream audio check. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good evening. My name is Hank Stevenson. I'm the co-founder of the Arizona Agenda, a daily newsletter covering Arizona politics and government, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's debate. The Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event. Clean Elections is the state's voter education agency and the official sponsor of Arizona debates. Clean Elections wants voters to have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. Voters who are watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time. Do that via email to debates@kc-a.com, or you can text them into 408-302-1810, or you can even call them in 480-937-1253. We may not get to all audience questions, but we'll do our best. Tonight, we're diving into the Senate primary in Legislative District 4, which covers Central Phoenix, basically between the 51 and the 101 north of Camelback. As this is a primary election, candidates are competing against others in their party to become the official party nominee. All registered voters, including independent voters, can vote in the primary, but independent voters must choose a single party ballot that they wish to vote. Tonight, we're hearing from Kenneth Bowers, one of the two candidates for the Republican nomination to the state Senate in Legislative District 4. His opponent, Karine Werner, was invited but declined to attend. We remind the candidates and the audience that this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. And Mr. Bowers, since it's just you and I tonight, why don't you take a minute to give your opening statement and tell the voters what you're all about?
Thank you, sir. I want to start off by thanking Clean Elections for making this opportunity available to me. I very much appreciate it. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran and a veteran of 20 years in the criminal justice system in Arizona. My website, if people want to go to it and find out more about me, is votekenbowers.com. And everything that I will be saying tonight is just the merest introduction to what it is I plan to do or hope to do if I get elected. Having worked for 20 years in the prison system in Arizona, I've come to believe that there are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of young men in prison who should not be there. And I want to stop sending people to prison for nonviolent crimes where we turn them into angry and bitter thugs instead of the patriotic Americans we want them to be. I hope to be able to discuss that at length tonight, but there's a question and answer format here that we have to respect. And in fact, that might be the only time I am able to say anything about it. But that is the real reason I'm running. There's a lot of things wrong with the Department of Corrections, and I want to change all of them. But the main thing is that we're mixing violent people in with nonviolent people with a terrible effect on the lives of 18-year-old young men. I guess that's my, and it suffices as my opening statement.
Perfect. Well, let's just start there then. That's, the issue that you're most passionate about to know, have spent your career in law enforcement there. Take a moment to just tell us about the problem, but specifically with our sentencing laws as you see it and your solution to that problem.
Well, I really don't know anything about the sentencing laws because I wasn't a judge and I wasn't in the courts. But I do know that we're mixing nonviolent offenders with violent thugs in the prison system, and I'd like the opportunity to tell people what happens when they arrive, the very first day, or very first hour that they're in the prison, as compared to what we want to happen to young 18-year-old boys. What is it that you want, for example, to happen to an 18-year-old boy? Well, you want him to get some education. In America, usually a high school education suffices. You want him to get a job, and everybody hopes for a job that has progressive promotion throughout your life. We want him to join a church meet a nice girl and get married, buy a house, start a family, serve in the military if he's needed, and basically progress into a patriotic, loyal American from what he is when he's 18. Now, I'd like to ask you, do you know what actually happens to an 18-year-old boy that shows up in a prison who has committed a fiscal offense like stealing a car and is mixed up with violent offenders? And I've seen this happen and I was unable to do anything about it, but I'd like to go through some of the things that happen. The first thing that happens is that the young man is bracketed by usually 3 young men of his same race. Many Americans don't know this, but our prison system is segregated by race. Not the administration, but the inmates themselves have formed gangs throughout the prison system. So if our whatever race our young man is, he's bracketed when he arrives by 3 men who stand around him. And they take his papers and read them. They're very friendly with him at this point, but their purpose is to find out how much money he has and why he's in prison, because they pretend to hate sexual offenders and they want to identify you if you're a sexual offender. After they've decided they want you in their gang, they invite you to join and ask if you'll join. If you say you'll join, they promise to protect you while you're in. If you've stolen a car, you're probably doing 7 years, so you need protection. The first thing they want to tell you to do is welcome to the gang, start paying dues, get the money from your parents on a monthly basis. And to show your loyalty to the gang, beat up that guy over there tonight, put a lock in a sock and give him a whack at dinner. And we'll be standing around. If things go bad for you, we'll pitch in and help. But you show your loyalty. So this is how it starts for this guy. If he says no, he won't join, he's the man that gets beat up that night by some other person who just joined. This young man, remember the things that we wanted him to be? Well, while he's in prison, he's subject to the local prison religions. The Department of Correction has staff who pretend to be ministers of various religions. And they conduct services on Sundays for every religion that the inmates claim to be a member of, including the great spaghetti monster that flies across the sky. They have services for worshiping the spaghetti monster. And in other words, they're mocking our traditional religions, making fun of it. We separate this man, of course, from his education. The prison system has a education that goes through a high school diploma, but it's a farce. The teachers that are hired are enabled to have an inmate porter that helps them in the prison. They pick the biggest, toughest inmate around, and that person maintains order in their school. And that person takes over and eventually is conducting the classes and in fact, grading. And what they do is fill out the exams for the people. And it comes down to the fact that the students don't do anything except come to class and pay off the porter with stores like Fritos and potato chips. That's how they get their high school diplomas. And it's a total farce. And the industry knows it and pays no attention to it. So that's education. There's, of course, no job development leading to advancement. They're cut off from their family. And for an 18-year-old boy to be cut off from his mother is an emotional impact that's enormous. They're cut off from their girlfriend if they have them. The military doesn't want them. When they eventually get out of prison, the military doesn't want ex-inmates. They might be taking them now, but when I was in, they weren't. I'm not going to discuss things that go on in the prison sexually because the fact there might be children watching this. And I don't want to say what actually goes on, but use your imagination. They're taught disrespect of anyone in authority, especially the officers. They're taught hatred of the other races. And all of this is for an economic crime where this young man stole a car. Now, when you are convicted in a court for stealing a car or committing any fiscal crime, that criminal court does not have the jurisdiction to force you to pay restitution to your victims. Why not? Why don't the victims of a stolen car get paid off by their victim, by the criminal who stole their car? Having your car stolen is an economic disaster in this country. Cars are up to $40,000 a piece. I want the inmates who are convicted of crimes like this to have to pay restitution to their victims and a fine to the state for the trouble that we go to, but never go to a prison where this happens to them. That's pretty much what I have to say quickly about what happens in a prison to a young man who comes in. Go ahead. Instead of turning him into a patriotic and loyal American, the prisons are violence factories, or violence universities. When he gets out, he is angry and for the rest of his life about what's been done to him. He's generally speaking, it's between 60 and 70% of them are back in prison within 2 or 3 years, and the crimes they committed escalate into violence. And if it's not too long, before they commit their first murder. And that's what happens to the prisons. And all of this was started by the British. The British started this prison system. They were a monarchy. They hated the lower class, and they used the prison system to hold people down. When we got rid of the British, we never changed the system. It's still the same. And all of the movies that are shown by Hollywood, the books that are written that describe what goes on in a prison are complete bunk. Okay, that's
fascinating. You kind of outlined a policy of not throwing economic and nonviolent offenders into jail, and emphasizing restitution to the victims and the state for their trouble. But your description of the problems within prisons was fascinating. And I wonder, you painted a good picture of everything that's wrong with once you're already in prison. I wonder what specific laws or proposals you would advocate as a state lawmaker to change our actual prison system for the people who are already there.
I want to release the people who are there. The people who are in prison for nonviolent crimes and who have stayed nonviolent while they're in prison, I want them to be released. But it's the new people coming in that I'm especially concerned about. Another thing that's going on in this country is the creation of new crimes. There's a lot of people in prison for possession of pornography now. It wasn't a crime when you and I were kids. Those people should be released. They should not be in prison unless they've committed a violent crime.
Possession of pornography?
Yes, that's typically, they're doing 7 years.
Child pornography, are we talking about here? Or
it's of course child pornography, but it isn't real. The pornography that gets sold in the magazines and online and so forth, it's all fake. There's not real children. They don't exist anywhere in the world.
Okay. Let's move on a little bit to the state budget. That's one of the biggest things that lawmakers are asked to do every year is crafting the state budget. This year, they had to make huge cuts to make ends meet after overspending in the previous legislative session. I wonder if you can tell us what was the most damaging cut to the budget this year, in your opinion, and also add on to that, what areas of government could withstand bigger cuts, do you think?
Well, I think the prison system is probably the most expensive item in the budget. I think I heard it was $700 million a year, and it's $36,000 a year to keep a single man in prison. Even if what he did was steal a $20,000 car, we pay $36,000 a year to keep him there. He gets all of his food free. He gets uh, all of his medical care is paid for. I have to say, though, that the answer to your question is that I'm not an accountant. And people will go to my website, they'll see what my background really is. I do have a law degree, but I am not a subject matter expert on the budget of the state of Arizona, and I'm not going to pretend to be. I'm not going to make up answers. If I'm presented with something like a budget, I'm going to go to a subject matter expert and have them educate me in what's going on, especially with respect to the school system. I haven't been inside a working school in 50 years, and I don't pretend to know what's going on in schools, and I'm not going to pretend. I will go to a subject matter expert to find out whether what's going on and whether the schools need this and that. And that's going to be the answer to most of the last time I was on here, I was asked about the water system for all things, as if I should know something about the water system in Arizona. I know nothing about it. And I'm going to say that outright. And I think most politicians are pretending to be subject matter experts on everything, not me. I know something about the prison system. There's a lot of things wrong with it. I've only picked out the worst thing to talk about tonight. There's a lot of things wrong with the prison system. Some of the things you would not believe is going on in America, but it really is. If I could say briefly one of them, you know that the prisons in Arizona don't have compressive air conditioners. They have evaporative coolers. And as my job, I locked men down in prison cells made out of concrete when it was 110 degrees. It's unbelievable that we're doing that. I want to set up at least a 5-year program to put in compressive air conditioners in the prisons, which will have fewer inmates to begin with if it's only the violent people that are there.
Let me ask, what prison did you work in? Were you moved around the system, or were you at one primarily?
I moved around. Yeah, I worked mostly at Perryville. I was at Perryville for 4 years, but I worked at the ACW, the Arizona Center for Women, and I believe it's closed now. But I worked there for, I think it was 10 weeks. I worked in the central office for 10 years. When I was in the central office, I was a classification officer. I was in charge of moving inmates from one prison to another, picking out their record and trying to move them to where they would do best. And then I was, as I joined the legal department, and I was in charge of the inmate appeals of their sentences. And that was 10 years.
Wow.
As such, I had access to their records. I had access to their court record. Everything that was known about them in the prison system came across my desk. And I was able to relate to prisoners that I had known personally when I worked in their prison. And I believe some of those people are completely innocent. They have committed no crime.
What was the worst functioning prison that you worked in Arizona, and the best?
Oh boy.
I read the stories about Perryville every now and then.
Well, Perryville Perryville doesn't have any towers, So that's because they don't own the land at Perryville. That's another problem with the prison system. About 70 years ago, somebody decided not to buy the land for prisons, but to rent it from the owners, lease it from the owners. So today, instead of owning billions of dollars worth of valuable real estate, Arizona is leasing the land that the prisons sit on. I want to change that. It's one of the things I want to do.
How do you feel about private prisons? We've leaned on, private corporations to run our prisons in Arizona for a long time to varying degrees.
Now, private prisons.
Go ahead.
The public has a perception about private prisons, which is that they are completely corrupt and that they are sending people to prison and keeping them in prison because private prisons make money out of it. I was never in a position in the downtown office to assess or to see anything like that. But I do know some of the people that work there, and I never witnessed any form of corruption in the private prison system. What they're trying to do in the private prison system is to take a record of an inmate and classify them from 1 to 5. And if they are a 1 and they are considered nonviolent, they send them to a private prison. And that's an effort to solve the problems that I've been talking about. It doesn't work. There's not enough private prisons to handle all these people. So when I was at Perryville, they were sending level 1 inmates to Perryville, and they were in with the level 5 inmates. So in my view, the private prison has not worked, but not for the reason that people are given.
Interesting. All right, I do want to touch on a couple of other things. I realize, this is the issue that animates you and that you're passionate about, but lawmaking is a diverse job where, lawmakers have to vote on whatever comes before them, not just the issues that they care about. So I want to ask briefly about immigration and the border. This is a huge issue in this country, especially within the Republican primary. And one of the big solutions that lawmakers came up with this year was HCR 2060, which is a measure that's heading to the November ballot that would make it a state crime to enter the country illegally. I wonder, Mr. Bowers, if you have thoughts on that, an opinion on what Arizona's role in policing the border and border security should be?
Well, I'm a conservative. I joined the Navy when I was 18. I support President Trump because I believe he's our best hope to saving our republic from the insane communists who are trying to take over now. That tells you pretty much about the type of person I am. But it's the prison system I care about. I'm not running to help Donald Trump. I've never met him. He doesn't know me. I don't know anything about the law that you just talked about. People who are incumbents will know because they are educated on that system. I've never been elected to any office. The only thing I know about is the prison system, and I will consult with subject matter experts on everything else. That's people who have worked in the industry, people who have been firemen, people who have been policemen.
All right. I'm going to keep asking about things other than prison. I'll try to do it in a way where we can find out, maybe even if you don't have the exact answers, I think it's illuminating for voters just to hear the way you think about some of these issues. So I want to ask a little bit about abortion. Another issue that's going to be on the November ballot, more than likely, has eaten up a lot of the oxygen at the Capitol in the last year or so. And let me just put this simply, rather than talking about the laws and the initiative on the ballot and all that, where do you think we should draw the line when it comes to abortion? Are you a person, at the moment of conception? Are you 15 weeks? Where should abortion be allowed or not allowed?
I would only allow abortion to save the life of the mother, and I'm not certain that any such condition exists. I'm a Christian, and I'm against abortion. I'm for the Second Amendment, which has to do with guns. I'm a constitutionalist. And with that, I'd like to move into a discussion of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation in the prisons. When I was a kid, I was a lifeguard. And when you encountered a drowning victim, what you did was the Sylvester back pressure arm lift method, which clears your lungs of liquid and circulates the blood because of the pressure on the heart. In around 1965, this country changed that and went to mouth-to-mouth resuscitation because it was believed to be better for drowning victims because of the getting the liquid out. I would dispute that. I never saw a drowning victim saved by mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. But in the prison system today, it is mandated that inmates who compromised breathing get mouth-to-mouth resuscitation from the officers. Now, 70% of the inmates have infectious hepatitis. How would you like to give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to an inmate that has hepatitis? No answer. If I had time, I could tell you what's actually happening in the prisons. We have inmates who hang themselves at night, and they are dead when they are discovered. But there's no one in the prison system who has the power to declare an inmate to be deceased. So our officers have to give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to a dead body until that body is transported to a hospital where the inmate can be declared dead. Can you believe that's happening in America? It is. I want to pass a law bringing back the Sylvester body. And by the way, the reason they gave for the going away from the Sylvester method, one of the reasons was they claimed that infants and children were having their ribs broken. We don't have infants and children in our prison system. How come that protocol of mouth to mouth exists in an adult male prison? I want to change the law and go back to the Sylvester arm lift method for inmates who have compromised breathing.
Okay. Let's see if you can turn housing into prisons too. I want to ask about I won't even get into the exact law that lawmakers passed, but I imagine you're aware that lawmakers want to have, and Governor Katie Hobbs signed a bill that would allow homeowners in many cities zoned for single family residential properties to add casitas or accessory dwelling units to their properties. Knowing your district, I imagine this is a big issue to many homeowners around there. Do you have any thoughts on whether or not we should be allowing homeowners to build casitas on their property in addition to their home?
What is a casita?
It's like a small house. You know how they have like a guest house, or sometimes they call it like a mother-in-law, you know? You haven't seen those popping up in your neighborhood?
No, I haven't. I have not seen anything like that. And I have no comment on the issue.
What about solving the state's housing crisis? I'm sure when you drive down the road, you notice that there are far more people without homes than there used to be. Do you have any solutions to that? I'm sure it's not send them to prison.
No, it's not. No, I think that I really have no solution to it except to improve the economy and bring back the prosperity that we had when we were kids. Do you remember how things were in the 50s? Most people don't remember how prosperous this country was.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me ask about the election. You mentioned that you are a big fan of former President Donald Trump.
No, I didn't say that. I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. I think he's the best individual to save us from the situation we're in.
Okay.
I've never met him, and he doesn't know me, and that's as far as I go with it.
Okay.
I'm in this for the prison thing.
Do you believe that the 2020 election that President Joe Biden won that fair and square?
The only thing I know about the 2020 election is that I voted in it, and when I went to the polling station, I was given a ballot and I was given a pen that was a sloppy leaker. It leaked all over the thing. It leaked through the paper to the backside where the judges were to be reelected. And when I turned it in, the person who took it from me told me that, all of these that are stained like that are going into a box where they'll be hand counted. And I've heard I don't know that it's true, but I've heard that those ballots were never counted. And that's all. That's the only thing I know about the prison system. I mean, not the prison system, what happened in 2020 election.
Okay. All right. I want to ask about more policies, but I think we're just going to get back to prisons, aren't we?
I hope so. I'll do the best I can. I'll tell you my opinion about different things.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the education system. We talk about is the education system school? Is there a school to prison pipeline? So there's kind of a connection for you. But like specifically, actually, let's go there. The superintendent of public instruction, Tom Horn, has talked about the need for more discipline in schools. He thinks that's a big part of why our schools are the way they are today. The other side of that coin, a lot of people would argue there's plenty of discipline, there's plenty of law enforcement in our schools already, and that is contributing to young people ending up on the wrong side of the law and ending up in prison. How should we be policing our kids at school, I guess, is the question for you.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Next.
Are teachers in your district making too much money or not enough money?
I don't have any comment about that.
Okay. Yeah, all right. I could ask you about water, but you've already told me what you think about the water question. So I've got nothing else on prisons. What should people be asking about prisons? We don't spend a lot of time in these political debates on prisons, even though, as you noted, it takes up a huge part of our state budget. What are the things?
There are absolutely horrible people in prison. There are crimes committed in prison that you don't know about, that are never talked about. There's things that go on in the prison system that are beyond. I won't talk about it in this thing because of children that are listening. I want to change the prison system so the only people in prison are violent prisoners. And I understand that there are all kinds of exceptions to that. It's very difficult to conceive of allowing some people out, but the prison system is really a nightmare. And the American people have no idea what the prisons are like. When you go back and read the textbooks about it, the prison system is misrepresented every place. The officers are misrepresented. Hold on just a second here. The prison system has been misrepresented for hundreds of years since the French Revolution, when they wrote a book about the prison system, where the prisoner for the first time was an absolutely wonderful hero, and the man who was persecuting him was an evil, terrible person. That's been the themes all along. You look at the American movies about the prison system, always the inmate is innocent, and it's the officers who are at fault for everything. That's absolutely not the truth. What goes on in the prison is the prisons are just barely under control by the officers. I'm expecting any day there to be terrible riots in the prison system. The prison system is filled with people who have committed horrendous murders and horrendous crimes, and they need to stay there.
All right. Well, we're running out of time here. Do you want to take a few minutes for some closing remarks and kind of remind the voters where they can get more information about your campaign?
Well, I have a website. It's K. Bowers Jr. at Cox.net. And that website does go through a lot of the things that I believe in and tells my history. And I would like people to go to that website and have a look at it. There's a lot of things I haven't talked about here about what goes on in the prison system. And I would like people to go to the website and see what I have done and what I hope to do. The discussion that I had about the prison system and it's just an introduction. There's all kinds of other things that I can't talk about. I was an officer for 20 years, and got out and I'm retired. And this is what I'm trying to do is make some kind of a contribution to change the way things are.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, sir. I appreciate you participating in this debate. And to our voters, thank you all for taking the time to watch this debate and inform yourself ahead of the July 30 primary election. And we encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Bowers.
And thank you, sir.